You're listening to Your Rivers Are Wrong, the podcast. My name is Merle. I'm here with my good friend Dante, and we're here to build worlds and tell their stories. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Good morning, or evening, or afternoon, whenever you may be. Welcome back to the Your Rivers Are Wrong podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Dante.
And I'm the other host, and my name is Merle.
And we're here, as we are every week, to talk about the wonderful whimsies of world building, the arts and aesthetics of setting up a setting and telling stories born from it.
That's right.
We're back.
Beautiful. Beautifully done.
I kind of want to talk about our weekends. One, obviously, because I'm interested in what you had to do during the weekend, and two, because I had a very interesting experience. So,
I feel like I want to hear about yours then first, because this piqued my interest.
Cool. So over the weekend, as you know, we were supposed to play D&D with the friends.
That's right.
But a lot of us had plans and stuff, and people were coming over. My plans for the weekend was that I went on a hike.
Ooh.
Very exciting.
Like that.
Left the city for a bit, went into the, I guess the closest thing we have to mountains in the area. And we went on a hike that lasted a little over 4 hours and a little less than 6 miles. And it was rough and rocky. And it was very fun because it was with a bunch of people that I don't yet know very well, but now I'm coming to know better, and I very much enjoyed it.
Oh, I love that. That's like a solid hike. Did you have a lot of ups and downs and stuff?
Yeah.
I guess because it's sort of mountainous.
Oh, yeah. It was, I think the thing that stuck out to the most to us was that the roads were like rocky. So there was never a place where you could just walk straight and not have to twist your foot a little bit or jump onto a rock.
Right.
Which was a little hard on the feet after a while. And it was a straight line, like a flat surface, or just a steady incline for a good long while. And then suddenly, like a 30-degree climb on rocks. And it's just
Dang.
like, oh, wasn't ready for that. And we're all just like on our all fours. Like,
guess we're doing this now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. I love it.
There's no other path? No? Okay. But yeah, view was amazing. Walk was very fun. And we sang like Disney songs and show tunes all the way down.
Really?
So.
What the hell? I want to have this walking group. That's super fun. Holy shit. Okay. Did you have good weather?
Yes, we did. The night before, it was raining and forecasted to rain.
Ooh.
But we were like, and a lot of people canceled because like, I don't want to walk through mud. But we checked the forecast, and in that specific spot, there was like no rain for 24 hours before we arrived. So clearly people just not being in the mood to hike. That's fine. I didn't mind. That's fine.
People be people.
But the thing I wanted to bring up, it was not necessarily the hike, but the thing after. Because we went to a place to eat that I could only describe as aggressively American. And let me. What does that mean? Now, I'm going to take a wild guess, and people in America, if you're listening to this, you probably know what this is or have heard of it, but I can almost 100% guess that this is not in the Netherlands. It's not in Holland.
I mean, try me, sure.
Do you have a place called Fuddruckers?
No, I feel like I've heard this name though, but I don't really have any clue what it is. Well, like apparently it's aggressively American, but
I've eaten there maybe once. I don't know when it was, but a long time ago. So this is the first time visiting in a long while. And let me just describe what you can order here. Okay. So Monday to Friday, we couldn't tap into it today, but Monday to Friday, there's a deal that happens before 4 p.m. called the lunch special. Of course, more food, less money, a special.
Sure.
And it was a burger or a meal, and you could choose if you wanted a third pound of meat, a half pound of meat, or a full pound of meat.
Okay.
Which is, kind of normal. But you also had unlimited fries, as in like as many fries as you could possibly eat. You can also have unlimited soda, as much as you want to drink.
Oh,
right?
God. Okay.
And they had once you get your burger, they don't give you any toppings or condiments because you put them on yourself. You go to a bar to the side, and you just pick up with tongs whatever toppings you want on this burger.
Interesting.
Which is wonderful. And then I'm like, okay, that's a lot of stuff. My burger's kind of full. And I go over to the side, and then of course there's condiments, and there's like 20 condiments. And the one that stuck out to me the most, which I'm like, oh, this is definitely America. There was a squeeze dispenser for cheese sauce. Do you have cheese sauce?
Yeah, this is a thing that I only know from American diners or something, or I guess super American fast food restaurants, I guess, in here. And now they sell it in the supermarket, and I was super confused by it because it's in a tube that looks like it's for oil paint, like oil painting, but then it's cheese, and it's like fluid cheese, and I don't understand it, and I kind of am detested by it. But yes,
it's a ketchup dispenser with cheese.
Yeah, awful. What the hell? Who wants this? Apparently
I had to try. Yeah, I had to try.
Okay.
So I hit it.
Yeah, of course,
and then,
of course.
It's just like hot ketchup consistency cheese. And I'm like, okay.
That's so strange.
This is a lot. This is a lot. And then you take that back, you eat everything. They also had chocolate soda, which is just chocolate milk but carbonated. So it tastes like you mix chocolate milk with Sprite.
No.
and of course, the kicker, which is wonderful, is that they also give you a shake if you order a shake, and they give you like a cup that holds all of the excess shake that you couldn't put in your cup. So it's like you get your shake and then like the extra, which is another like 2/3 of a cup of shake.
Wow. Okay.
And I'm like, this is thousands of calories. This is what I need to eat for the rest of like the next 30 days.
I was going to say, like, you thought you were doing some healthy shit and then you would go there. Like, it totally negates everything that you tried before. The previous 5 hours are just ruined now.
It was so much. It was so much. Like,
but how does this work as a business model? Like, is it a sort of all you can eat? Like, you pay one thing and then you can just eat whatever you want? Or you pay for one burger, I guess? Is that how it works?
I guess the idea is that like what fries cost like nothing to make. Soda is super cheap. And the burger is the only thing that costs a lot. So just give people a reason to come in and stay. And the longer they're there, the more food they order, things like that. It's good food.
Okay.
Heavy food. Very heavy food. But I just kept thinking like I could never find this place somewhere else without it being exported specifically from America. This is a distinctly American establishment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yes, I cannot disagree with you there. I feel like there would be like an audience for it anywhere. It's a very specific audience. And I feel like in America, it's kind of the general audience, maybe. It's more widespread, accessible, or allowed. I guess.
Allowed.
Yeah.
We allow it in America.
Yeah.
These massive portions. Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
I needed to bring up the hike. Yeah.
If you say aggressively American, this is kind of what it is. So, I understand this now, this concept.
There's an aesthetic to it. All you can eat for as long as you want.
Yeah. Fluid cheese. Yeah.
Fluid cheese.
Yeah. It's a
from
canon,
a squeeze
kind
dispenser.
Yeah. Cheese dispenser. I hate it.
Cheese dispensers.
Yeah.
America. But that was the highlight of my weekend.
I have to say, I don't miss not having that here. Gotta say that? Even though I haven't tried? Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well,
Okay.
But sounds good.
Anything on your weekend? I do want to catch up on what you did if you did anything exciting.
Let me think. D&D, but we didn't have D&D. So that's what we had in common this weekend.
Nice.
Actually, it's been very fun. I've been doing this musical project, right? The Evita production that I'm part of.
Yes.
And actually, one of the members of the ensemble of the cast, I guess, is my neighbor.
Wow.
And now turning into a very good friend of me. She is also a soprano like me. And she was like, in COVID times, actually, I played a lot of music with my dad just in my house. Do you want to join? Because you're also a soprano and we can do duets and stuff. And I was like, okay, sure. Even though, it's not COVID anymore, but sure. So that was very fun. So we tried a few super classical duets, I guess. There's one, the Flower Duet, I think a very famous one. And we did some other stuff, but it was super classical. I love to sing classical, but I always hear from other people that I'm too classical because it's not really hip or something in the musical. In musical singing, usually it's more belting and it's more straight and it's more power behind it than the sort of classical tone or timbre.
Sure.
So it was super nice to just do that and not be conscious about how classical it is because that's the point. And it was super fun and our voices are super similar. So that was very, very nice to try. And her dad is kind of a musician as well. So he played the piano.
Wow.
And yeah, that was super fun. So that's been a good first time. And we're definitely going to do that some more because that was really nice.
Cool.
And then on Sunday, I went to an amateur production of another musical company that's a sort of local musical company, I guess, from Legally Blonde in Dutch, which was fascinating because Legally Blonde is also talking about aggressively American. Legally Blonde's pretty aggressively American. I love this musical so much, but I was super curious how that would be in the Dutch language because that's kind of
translated, yeah.
Strange, yeah. But it worked out quite well and they were really good. So lots of singing in this weekend, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, pretty good.
So wait, this is kind of my first time hearing about it. Is your dad like a musician? Do they play a lot of instruments? Is it something like they specialize in?
My dad is not. He sings in choirs and stuff, but he's not a musician. But
got it.
The dad of my neighbor is a musician. So he played the piano. Yeah, he came over. And I was like, hello, I don't know you, but I guess we're singing together now. Okay, cool. So that was fun.
It's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, jam sessions are always so fun.
Super fun. Yeah, definitely got to do that more. Anyway, so that's been my weekend.
Cool. Yeah, I love when I can just like sit back a little bit and just bask in someone else's talent. Just like, that's so good. You're so good. That's great. More of that.
Yeah. I love it. Because you've been doing quite some like piano accompaniment, right? For other people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In college, I had a locker where I kept a foldable cajon. So a foldable like box drum and a
Wait, what's that?
A cajon. It's like a rectangle. The best way to describe it is literally a box you sit on, and you can hit the middle for a bass sound. Is it the percussion
one? Oh, yeah. Awesome.
You hit the middle for bass, the corners for like snare sounds. I had a foldable one that I got from the Philippines that I could just keep in my locker and unfold and bring it places if people wanted to drum. And I had a portable keyboard that I can connect to my computer. And all of that.
I love that. What the hell? That's so fun.
Yeah.
You could just like plug and go, basically. Super
Of course. I had all of that specifically because I just wanted to hear my friends like sing and perform. And this was a perfect excuse for them to do that. But like for good reason, you know?
Oh, that's so altruistic of you.
It was kind of selfish for me because I just wanted to hear them sing. But, you know.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good time.
For you, but also for me.
Very subtle. Yes.
Yeah. And that sounds really fun. But before we jump into our podcast, I do have one more thing to cover. So this intro will be very long.
Whatever. Yeah, we're at it anyway.
Yeah. Cool.
What is it?
Another milestone that we will hit in this recording as of the end of this recording, assuming it goes over 22 minutes, you know.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we're pretty close already. Yes.
We will have published and recorded and published a total of 24 hours of podcasting.
What? Whoa.
Because all of our episodes land around 45-50 minutes.
I mean, yeah, that's right. Holy shit. That's so many hours.
24.
Oh my God.
You in your seat, wherever you are, could be listening to us for a full day.
You could do like a marathon and then, you know,
we're marathon
miss a day
worthy.
of your life. Yeah, we're marathonable now. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Add that to the list.
Kudos to us. Congrats to us for that.
Congrats to us.
In a few minutes, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely already recorded more than 24 hours, but thanks to like, you know, chopping it up for the entertainment of the audience, we cut it down to a little bit less than that. So 22 minutes. I'll mark it off when we hit it.
Awesome. Cool.
Anyway, let's jump into our topics for today. Each of us bring a topic to the table. We don't know what we're bringing to the table. That's kind of the fun in it. But I believe I'm starting it today. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so this is something that I really enjoy talking about. Recently reminded of as a fantastic topic because I watched something last week, 2 weeks ago, called the GM Roundtable between Matthew Mercer, Abria Iyengar, and Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one too. Super fun.
And it is just, if you don't mind spoilers about the series, I'm not going to say the spoilers, but if you don't mind watching spoilers about the series, EXU Calamity, it is a wellspring of GM knowledge. It is amazing how they look at the game and how they prepare for it. It's like the insight behind the curtain of running a live play D&D session. There's levels to it. And I found myself constantly finding nuggets of knowledge to take into my own games and to just process and remember when I'm, you know, doing stuff and preparing for stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And the topic that I really wanted to cover today, which they covered in the first 30 minutes, which I very much recommend you watch, is the topic of backstories. I want to talk about backstories today.
Yes. Good call.
Now I got to put this in perspective, right? A lot of people watching this podcast haven't played D&D before, so they don't really know what it means.
Podcast, yes.
Watching this pod, did I stutter? This will you're watching. If you're watching the audio form of this podcast, you're technically watching the
looking
podcast.
At your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But for those listening to this podcast, not all of you play D&D, and I get that. So I wanna kind of explain that backstories means a significant thing in the realm of tabletop role playing.
Yeah.
That it is something that you do and you prep before you play with the people you're playing with. It is like, especially for D&D, the character that you play as in this 4-hour improv session is something that you have planned in advance with the collaboration of your game master and perhaps the other players. So I kind of want to talk to you and ask you a question or two specifically about what makes a good backstory. What makes a backstory conducive to the D&D realm, or just conducive to fleshing out a character that you plan to enjoy for many, many hours?
Interesting. I think this starts off perfectly because you're already kind of gearing toward who's this for, right? The backstory that you write. Because in D&D, you, as the player, play continuously in this character or in this life that you created or made. But also your dungeon master or DM or GM needs this to sort of fold the story around your character's history, right? So where's the line between, is this for you? Is this for the DM? Is this for sort of general knowledge? How much is this embedded in either person at the table? And I think what I like, or what I think is important in a backstory like that, is the combination of that. So kind of both being open-ended in terms of like, please fill me in on this. Let me know what this is that I don't know anything about, because I'm just this one perspective, this one character from whose perspective I'm looking at the world.
Right.
And on the other side, you need enough foundation, groundwork, I guess, to be able to understand who this person is that you're playing, because it is kind of like acting, right? So if you have such a blank canvas that you don't know at all what it is, then it's hard to play something or hard to fill in because there's literally nothing to hold on to. And I think the in-between depends on how you want to fill it in, right? Like some people go super detailed and have pages upon pages or all these kind of ideas, or they have a super set thing that happened in the past that they're still dealing with or something. And other people, I think there was one example once from Critical Role, also one of the characters from Campaign 1, Percy, just had a sort of very vague idea of his backstory and just gave the rest to Matthew Mercer, the DM, being like, I don't know what happened. I just was scared and ran away, and you fill in whatever worked. Start the game. Right. And that's also fun. And it depends a little bit on the person, I guess, what works between you and your DM, but also what you find fun or enough, I guess, to play around with. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important to write your character's backstory with the idea that, as they said in the roundtable, that backstory indicates trajectory, like their history indicates the current path that they're on, right? So because these things happen, because you know these things and experience these things, your character is likely to do X and Y and Z. And with that information, the backstory is an incredible resource to the dungeon master, to the game master, because it tells them or informs them of things that you will definitely be invested in. That's the most important thing, because a lot of playing D&D is the dungeon master or game master presenting things to the players that hopefully they'll enjoy, hopefully they'll be interested in and pick up and run with, right? So when you give a backstory to a game master, you're telling them, hey, if anything on these pages is mentioned or brought up or challenged or threatened, I want to be a part of it, right?
That's a good summary, yeah.
It is something that you will always grab. So what you're doing is you're facilitating your dungeon master telling a story that you will in turn enjoy. And that, I feel like some people really focus on, tragic past, brothers and sisters, be the greatest adventurer. But like, be the greatest adventurer doesn't mean much unless you have a vision of what that looks like. Like, what does it mean to be the greatest adventurer? What does it mean to be renowned or to have vengeance? Like, what is a perfect idealistic picture of what you want that to be? And then when you give it to the game master or give it to the dungeon master, they can take that vision and incorporate it into their story. And that's basically the highest chance of both of you guys enjoying the story that comes out of it, right? It's not necessarily like, this is the story I want to play out and tell me how it happens. It's more like, here, this is what I'm invested in. This is what I enjoy. If you use this, you'll know that I will have your support in telling this story.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
For sure. Yeah. And I think also what you were saying about it sort of informing future decisions, right? Or like in-game decisions, I should say.
Right.
I think that's also very relevant to realize as you're writing or making your backstory, I guess. Past events are relevant and interesting, but also inform the way your character works. Like if they experienced if they experienced a happy childhood, which is not often the case in backstories.
Right.
If they had a loving relationship, had many, many siblings, for instance, always had festivities in their neighbor town square, if their family was big into cooking or, that informs the way they look at the world. Perhaps this character is a very optimistic, outgoing, loud character because if they wouldn't have been, they would totally fall away in the noise of their family, right? That can be a thing.
Right.
Or perhaps your character is really lost when they are traveling on their own because they've always been with so many people around. Those things happening in the past can really inform and decide what kind of person your character is or has been so far. And depending on how much influence those events or pasts have on you or on your player, that also informs the GM what is necessary to challenge, perhaps. Because if a character is very, to stay with this example, lost on their own, perhaps at some point in a session, the dungeon master can decide, okay, I'm going to split the party, or they're in a maze of sorts and somebody falls through a mirror and is suddenly on their own. What do you do?
Right.
And because that backstory informs the way this character works, that is an interesting challenge to put on a character like that. And I think that's good to realize when you're writing your backstory, how both actively, like if there's in your backstory, somebody stole something from me and I need it back no matter what. That's a very literal direction, but it can also be a very passive thing. As I said in the earlier example, like, oh, I feel very lost on my own because I'm always having people around. And both of those things have influence and shape also the perspective of your character.
Right.
Depending on how much you want to fill that in versus want to find that out, I guess, live in game. That's kind of your decision, or that's nice to think about when you're writing it.
Yeah. And the thing about backstories is that this isn't your cue to be like, okay, well, I'm going to write 30 pages of backstory, so my DM has a lot to work with. That's not necessarily what's being recommended here. What you want to do is explain to your DM through your backstory what things you would like to explore or delve into, like the most poignant moments, like Abria Iyengar says, basically right before any session or right before the campaign starts, summarize your character in 5 sentences. And if you do that, then you will immediately pinpoint the exact points of interest or the most concrete foundational touchstones or personality traits that are most important to you. Like if you can narrow down 10 pages of backstory into 5 sentences, then you will only pick out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 most important sentences of that backstory. Mm-hmm. And that helps inform the DM what you find important. Because I've read 10 pages of backstory. I've been
You've been
right?
there.
And I'll be like, okay, so like you've lived a full life. This is like 20 years of story. But if I bring this up, like when you were living in this town, will you care? Like, is this something that will be fun for you? Or are you putting this in here just to validate a character choice or race trait or like a feature in your stat block? Like, or do you actually care what this is? That's so important. And like people who don't live play RPGs, they don't really get it because backstories are to facilitate the telling of a story that is already concrete. Like writers know why things are in the backstory. It is to inform the decisions. It is to validate or confirm the happenings of the present because in their backstory they believe this or they do this, and that's all decided by one person. But when you are trusting your backstory to somebody else, it has to be a collaborative effort. Like you guys both have to walk into it with the same intentions of telling a story that both of you guys enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I don't want to say recently, but it took a little bit of time for me to realize, let's put it that way, that it's actually way more fun to know little about your character than it is to know a lot about your character. Because things will change in game anyway. Like I can think of so many things that I've started with or that I've wanted for a character and that never happened for the life of me. Completely different person, it's not even close. And that's okay because that's going to happen anyway. So if you're having 10, 20,000 pages of backstory and, in the first game, you're like, oh, I don't know, something happened and now they're suddenly very quirky and I don't know how it happened. Nothing makes sense anymore from what I wrote before. it also just saves you a lot of time to just be like, I don't really know a lot about this character. Maybe there's this one event that's kind of on her mind or on their mind, and that's it. And the rest I'm going to figure out as we're doing it, because I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know the group dynamics, the open-ended things that are in your backstory that you're literally not knowing anything about. For example, the thing about Percy from Critical Role where he's like, okay, I ran away from this horrible event and I don't know what happened, but I only know that I ran away and now I'm kind of shocked because I don't know what happened. And that's it. And that's very fun because then in game, everything will explain itself slowly over time to you. The things that would otherwise just be in the past, you can play that out live. And that's awesome.
Absolutely.
On that moment that it's happening, you'll be playing it. And that's more fun than when it happened in the past and you're just dealing with it, I guess, or have this in your history.
Give yourself room to be surprised, and you know what? That does a better sense. Give your character room to grow and change, because
for sure.
Sometimes I read backstories and I'm like, that's a full life. I don't know if anything I give you will change anything about your character. They seem pretty darn set, you know. And this is the importance of having session zeros and having, which is like a session you have before the official story starts, where you get to test your character, play around with their voice, their
waters,
their personality, their mannerisms, things like that. What works, what doesn't. You could try out a voice, and if it doesn't work, throw it out. You know, things like that. And sometimes you'll want to play like a really dumb character for fun. I do that. I do that all the time. Like Merle, you would know.
I would know. Yes.
The rest. And the rest of the party is also playing dumb characters. So it's just like, wait, maybe I should be the brains here. Maybe I should.
Should we have one person that knows what they're doing? Maybe.
One intelligent, well-adjusted person?
Yeah.
Probably, you know? And that's kind of something that works out at the very beginning. I keep looking at this from a game master perspective because I've seen like tens of, probably close to over 100 backstories at this point.
Sure, yeah.
It informs me of like, how do I treat this character? Like what interests them? What enlivens them? And when it comes to a campaign that only has 4 players, you have to remember that the only people who care where the story goes are the 4 people, right? So if you're going to spend hundreds of hours telling a story for these 4 people that you will all enjoy, you cater that story as much as you can towards the things they're invested with. Brennan Lee Mulligan had a fantastic point, and I only agreed with it until I heard it, and it validated what I always thought, is that you build 30% of the world, and then you give it to your players, and they inform you what the 70% should be, right?
Oh, right. That's a good call. Yeah.
So, like, I have a one-shot I've run over a dozen times at this point called Patrons of Caldwell. It is a simple story. I know the beginning, middle, and end like the back of my hand. But that story changes every time I write it because I present the basic information to the players. And they tell me, it might be the first or second time I ever play with them, they tell me what their characters are interested in. And I'm like, oh, you like Fae? Well, here's 5 more Fae into the story that wasn't always there.
Sure, yeah.
You like disregarding the hierarchy? Gosh, I'm going to throw in a couple nobles into this story. Can't wait for you
Here's
to hate
all the
them,
hierarchy you need to disregard.
Yeah.
Go.
I leave plenty of room in the story to fill in with what they most resonate with. I almost ensure that they will enjoy it, because if all the characters are like holy religious folk, if I chuck in something about a god's intervention, they're going to eat it right up. Like, I know that that's something that they will very much be attached to. And if it's like, I don't know, if it's just like 5 wizards and then your story is about like robots and political intrigue, they probably just want to throw fireballs. Give them things that are flammable, you know?
Give them things that are flammable. That's the best metaphor for this whole spiel, because it's just sort of reacting to whatever their capabilities are or their interests are. So if there's nothing flammable around, why on earth would I build a wizard based on fire magic? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
If I built it already, then please give me something flammable, because then I can showcase my fire powers. Yeah, exactly.
If I see on a character sheet that this person really wants to turn into a werewolf, like they got their whole kit is kitted out to eventually go wolf, I'm not going to give them a story in like a dining hall that never involves like combat or going crazy.
No,
like,
that's not fun. Exactly.
Why would they invest time into the character sheet if you're not going to play with what they clearly enjoy? Like that.
Yes.
Like that's what backstories are for, to set up something.
With a small sort of note to that is that also
of course.
The Dungeon Master is part of the game. So the 30% that you will make should also be enjoyable to you. I'm thinking, for instance, if you build a city or if you build a setting and you really enjoy underwater cities or something, then if your players hate it, but you're super into it, you should have the 30% that is still a little bit part of that or still a little bit enjoyable. Because unlike the players, you as the DM do not have a character to refer to in terms of what are their interests, what should I cater to? Because you just have the world. So if you really like that and the players are into different things, it's easy to sort of negate or I guess forget that your fun is also part of this world, right? So that's a little side note.
Absolutely. Like, I speak from experience where I plan out a whole campaign, all of these villains, all of these twists, all of these relics and things that they're going to run into. And I'm like, oh, they're going to love this. Session 1, they absolutely do not love this. And I'm like, oh, well, dang, I could have saved so many more hours throwing out those 10 pages that they're clearly not going to interact with. And I could have just stuck with this core 2 or 3 concepts that they're clearly latching onto. So don't stress yourself out building out so much. Look at their backstory, see what they love, and then build the world around that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's, okay. I've gone long enough in this topic, long enough that we've crossed 24 hours. Let's go.
Congrats.
Landmark.
Congrats,
milestone. Yes, 24-hour marathon, officially a thing with Your Rivers Are Wrong.
We have now more hours than I think the total of Harry Potter movies, if you want to watch them all.
You could either watch the Harry Potter series twice or
listen to our podcast. I mean, I know what I was going to go for. Yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely. All right. But that's my spiel on backstories.
Yeah, I think but good so call. Important. Yeah, because it takes a bit of crafting to, get it right and then get the most enjoyment out of it. So very relevant subject.
Cool. Okay. And with that, we're going to bounce over to you.
Sounds like a bounce. Okay. For this episode, I wanted to talk with you about big cities, metropoles. Metropolises. I should have looked up the plural of this. Metropoli? That sounds a bit weird.
I need to know. I can't wait. I'm going to look it up.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, look it up. Perfect start.
The plural, disappointing. The plural of metropolis is metropolises.
Metropolises? Ooh. It sounds like molasses and I'm not sure if I like it. Metropolises. I'll just say cities. It's easier. Metropoles. That's the same thing, right? Or is that a different thing?
I think metropoles is the thing. I don't know if it's used.
Because in Dutch you say metropole to metropolis. But if metropole in English means the same thing, I'm not sure.
The Latin plural is metropoles. The Greek plural is metropolis with an E mixed in there. Sorry.
I'm so unsure.
I can't give it to you. It's metropolises. Listen, if you want to say metropoles, who's going to stop you?
I'm probably going to say it anyway because I already forgot which the right one is now because I'm very confused. Okay, anyway, bringing it back. Okay, we figured out it's either metropolises or metropoles, perhaps, question mark, or just cities, which is maybe the best one to go with. Okay, I want to talk to you about big cities, Dante, the biggest cities, in fact, because I think it's interesting that a city in itself can become a whole world. When I think about big cities, when I think about metropolises, I think about skyscrapers, people never leaving this, cities as big as planets, millions of people in the same spaces, streets, living quarters, everyone kind of jammed together, the bustle, the liveliness of it. That's kind of the feel I get from big cities. And it can happen in all kinds of settings, actually, like the classic one, maybe where even our sort of pop culture referenceable name for Metropolis comes from. Like there's a pretty classic movie by, I think, Franz Lang from 1927, I think.
Oh, wow.
Which is called Metropolis. And it's a very sci-fi, very avant-garde kind of art house film. I think it's a sort of sci-fi about, I don't know, sci-fi things, robots and AI and very big cities. I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Sure.
But, the whole aesthetic of this is very, Chrome and Blade Runner-esque science fiction, big buildings, people living a life that's maybe not ideal, but they're still living it anyway, that's the vibe. But of course, we've seen both in D&D, but also, in settings or other stories in general, we've seen many other big cities that are not specifically sci-fi. I'm thinking, for instance, of Ba Sing Se in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Right.
A giant city. It's basically half of the population of the entire Earth Kingdom, I think, is in Ba Sing Se.
Mm-hmm.
Has different rings, a lot of hierarchy, nobles, lots of poverty as well, public transport, all these interesting things about city life.
Right.
So I feel like there's a lot to discuss here. And I kind of want to toss it to you and just hear what immediately comes to mind when we're talking about this.
Sure. Yeah, you touched upon a couple really important things right off the bat. First thing, obviously, is population. There is an incredible amount of people present, and the more people you have, the more varied those opinions get. If you separated from like a town with 50 people, you could realistically know everybody in town within the year. In a big city, and I can attest to this, being in NYC, I could meet 1,000 people in an afternoon, and I will never have met them before, and I will never meet them again.
Yeah,
right?
That's
they're
wild.
Individually unique, and they all have very specific outlooks and needs and wants and goals from themselves. And that is not something you can realistically attain understanding of in any given time. It's the amount of possibility and variance between each of these people that quite possibly might never affect you, Also, what you touched upon is transportation. The bigger the city, the more important travel is. Like, are you taking bus, train, car, airship? I don't know. What trolleys,
yes.
And zip lines, of course.
Much importante, yes.
Very important to big cities, as I would know in New York. Not kidding.
I will never, not bring zip lines up if it's the right time.
I very much look forward to the zipline network that will appear in one major city eventually.
Oh, for sure.
Those are the things that strike me. And with both of those things, the potential, I think, is the word I'm looking at here. Like the peak result of the city is almost unfathomable. It can go in so many different directions. If you look at a town with like 40, 50 people, in 50 years, you could probably predict what it looks like. You could probably predict like what the generations will build in the next one, what everybody will grow up to be, the families that they'll look like.
Yeah.
In a city, so much could happen. The churn of who comes, who goes is ridiculous. Like the city of 50 years ago is not the city of the current,
Yeah,
Faces change, buildings go out of business, new things arrive, the advertisements on the walls, the levels of technology. It moves quick because it has to. It's progress,
Yeah, for sure. I think that also ties into something that I find very fascinating in terms of city life or cities growing and changing in general, because it's so big in comparison to a village, a smaller village where you know everyone. There's a lot of, well, first off, anonymity involved, because what you were saying, like, you will never know everyone that's in your city. So at some point, you just don't start it, because it doesn't result in anything if you want to get to know everyone, whoever passes you, right? So city life, I feel, is pretty anonymous compared to a town, because
that's a great
in a town, obviously, you'll maybe see 30 people in a day, and they're always the same 30 people, and you're gonna know what they're up to because you see them always leaving at 10 in the morning. So okay, I guess they have a job that always starts at 11 or something. I don't know. Stupid example, but yes. Or if someone keeps carrying like large boxes of IKEA furniture, you're like, oh, they're probably renovating. It's kind of hard to not understand more of people's lives when you see the same people all the time who are in your space, right? Or close to your space. And in the city, that's just not the case, because there's so many faces, so many lives are crossing in this sort of metropole, this heightened space that everyone suddenly is in, that a lot of people are jammed into. But that also means that both the city grows and changes much faster, because there's much more business, people, lives, interactions, happenings going on. Mm-hmm. But also that becomes, I don't know, an abstract thing almost. Like if somebody opens a new shop in a town, it's like, oh, okay, nice, interesting. We know the people and we know they're just starting off, or they had a business before, or, oh, nice, we can get fresher groceries now than we had before. I don't know. And in a city, because that changes all the time, you just don't keep up. So it becomes this sort of abstract growth that a city just always have. And then there can be like construction somewhere and you're like, oh, I guess something's changing, but it's always a bit vague. Yes. It almost becomes a sort of organism in itself, a sort of living thing that you're in, right? And I think that's super wild and very nice as a concept. also, like, just in terms of world building, like, that's a very cool thing to be in a place that constantly shifts and moves and changes and is busy with new things.
As a testament to that, I do want to bring up some anecdotes. Anonymity is so present because, listen, stories go all over the place about the New York subway, about like there's like break dancers and homeless people and you know, callers of like everything, every sort of thing. But you don't interact with them and you don't invest in them because you might never see them again, right? You see them once and they might be gone forever in your lifespan, right? If you're in a small town and there's Crazy Joe on the corner, you're going to see Crazy Joe on the corner every day, every week, you know?
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
He will simply be there as part of your immediate, like, interactive life.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have enough time in this world to invest in everybody you meet, right? So you start becoming selective in what you pay attention to, who you speak to, what you witness and choose to interact with, right? There's actually a funny thing, and I'm pretty sure this is a statistic somewhere, where people in big cities marry later. And it's not because people in big cities aren't happier. That correlation is not causation, you know? But the idea is that the potential of who you meet changes every day. There is a much wider pool of people you could end up with, right? So realistically, like, if you're living in a small town and you're never going to move, you know everybody, like, you know who you might be with for the rest of your life just from living there for like a few years. But in a big city like from record, like New York, I could meet 100 different people
literally
every day,
anyone.
and I'll never run out of people. So that idea of finding the
I'll
perfect
never run
person,
out of people. Yeah, that's very true.
I don't want to put myself up there as somebody who constantly like speed dates. Like, they're not the right person. Let's keep going. No, that's not the thing I do. But it's just like, how do you know it's the right person when there's also 5,000 other people you have yet to meet
millions other
every
options,
day?
yeah.
So the idea of a big city being present, it feels almost infinite in possibilities simply because we do not have the time of day to interact with everything and see all of our options.
And also,
you know?
a city is so much bigger than us, right? Like, a town is kind of, we can oversee what's going on. We see kind of the complete picture of it. We kind of understand who everyone is. You know, you don't have all details, but you have a lot of details. And a city is what you were saying, like, there's almost infinite possibilities, as you were saying. And I think the fact that, you know, we only have, I guess, 90 years of this life to meet people. And, you know, you'll never be able to meet the entirety of New York. New York is too big for our sort of human perspective, which is crazy if I say it like that. But it's true. Like, how can we live in a place that's bigger than us and we all kind of contribute to it, but we'll never fully understand it because it's grown out of hand, right?
It's grown
that's
out of
crazy.
hand. New York City is out of hand, guys. Out of hand.
It's out of hand. Yeah, it's too much. Oh, I also wanted to ask, did you ever leave New York? Have you been there your entire life? Or did you also experience smaller cities or towns or things like that?
I was, I'm not going to say which borough I was born with, but I've only moved once, and it was from one borough to the next, right? So I've lived here my entire life. A core memory of mine is a summer I spent in Indiana. And so many trees, so many fields. How can there be so much empty space? Like, I remember as a city slicker, I thought of all of this empty space, and I'm like, something has to be here. Something has to be here.
What do you do?
There's too much space. Something should be here, filling the space. And I couldn't wrap my head around.
Yeah,
I couldn't wrap my head around simple expanses where there didn't have to be something. And it was fine. And that's okay. And life, you can live without a Walmart. We don't have Walmart. You can live without a ShopRite 5 blocks away. You can live without the nearest deli being around the corner or 100 people on your block. You could be the only person for miles. And that's okay. That's a thing. And I'm like, how much far? What? I need to see people. Where are the people? I need to hear the ambiance of the nighttime was crickets and birds. And the sounds of wind. And I'm like, where are the sirens? Where are the cars? the street, the honking. I need the sound of the bus depot right outside my window. Like,
I need city wildlife.
It's too quiet. The stars are too bright. You know.
Are you okay, Dancer?
It was eye-opening.
Did you come back traumatized?
No, it was a happy experience. I very much enjoyed it, and I was just like, but I'm like, I don't know if I could live somewhere this quiet. You know, I lived in a place with so much stimulation that when you go somewhere so much quieter.
Yeah, it's a shock. Yeah.
I need more stimulation. And maybe I've been either spoiled or conditioned to expect otherwise when it doesn't have to be that way, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting as well. That's actually pretty similar to how the Netherlands work, because the Netherlands, for the uninitiated, as a country, is a lot of people for the amount of country that we have. We have a lot of people for like the amount of square meters that everyone can own here. So there's a lot of city. As we talked about earlier, I think we have a very good public transport system because there's just so many people that need to go around.
Sure.
And there's not a lot of empty space except for in, really rural areas or on the edges of town or, but a lot of people here are city people.
Sure.
I remember whenever we would go to like neighboring countries like Belgium or France, my family would usually spend our time for a few weeks there. And there was just a lot of empty space, similar to what you were describing. I guess less extreme, but Belgium is just way less people than there are the Netherlands. It's way quieter and relaxer. There's just empty patches of grass that no one needs or wants. And that's just there. And I was like, that would never happen in Holland because we need all the space that we have, right? Yeah. It's pretty strange. So that's kind of a similar experience, I think, though probably less extreme. I think that's interesting that you had to sort of get used to not having cities in your brain or in your senses all the time.
Yeah. And I think, as we tie this back into like our main focus, like cities are a fantastic place to just kind of culture shock the characters you've made, right? It's a place to throw things at them that they're wildly uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
To meet gangs and rivals and establishments, like social hierarchies and cultural like edicts, like everybody eats at 2 p.m. And everybody orders from this place, and everybody gets a coffee order of this, and you got to stand in line for an hour to get your food, things like that. And they're like, why don't you just go to the farmer next door and ask for a lunch? There's the immediate shock of what you can present them with. Things that seem outlandish but work perfectly in this weird metropolis place where nobody cares about anybody. Maybe that's a little too close to home.
It's a very culture by itself. Yeah. And I think that's good to realize. If you want to build a city or in terms of world building, right? Like you can really go all in because it's such a bubble, I guess is the best way to describe it. A lot of people live there their entire lives, get routines going, are part of the bustle.
Of course.
And it's very nice and interesting as a story element to just throw people that are not from there in there and just experience how strange and different it is from their, traveling life or their life in general.
Of course. Like just like if you live in the country and you move to the city or vice versa, your whole workflow changes. Your whole routine changes. You gotta adjust to a place. Like I have plenty of friends who have moved from like the Midwest or even another country and arrive in New York and they're like, this place is different, like everybody moves like they're in a hurry. And I'm like, that's how I grew up. Like, I don't know any other life.
What do you mean hurry? This is just my way of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to get from this street to this street in 5 minutes. And you don't really have an option to
What do you mean fast? This is my normal tempo. Yeah.
Yeah. Keep up, the walking pace. Yeah.
The whole efficiency thing is very related to city life. There's so many people that need to be other places. It's got to work in a sort of efficient way. Otherwise, your city is going to constantly get stuck and be not really useful. So, you're kind of getting into the flow of it. And before you know it, you're in it and you haven't experienced anything else and you don't realize you don't always need the flow.
Yeah. Like New York is a city that never sleeps. If you live in a place that's an ocean of opportunity and you can truly do 200 different things at your whim.
Yeah.
You're not wasting time not doing that, right?
No, for sure.
There's always something to experience. And it's like you get swept up in the river of do things, be places, meet people, go.
Yeah. Well said. That's very true. Yep.
But yeah. Thank you for just bringing up a topic that I can relate to off the jump. Absolutely.
Honestly, I didn't realize how relatable that was for you until you brought up that New York is a thing. And I was like, oh, right. Are actually there all the time.
It's very easy to forget that the city is different from everywhere else until you're everywhere else. And you're like, oh, people live differently?
Yeah.
You're
what? How did they do it?
You're not cramming every minute of every second to something?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Build a city.
I like it. Thanks for sharing. Build a city, people.
Let me see. So what happens next? All right, we have the prompt. At the end.
How does our format work? Oh, right.
Yeah. At the end of our podcast, we like to give a prompt that we can entirely improvise the answer to. One of us presents a question, the other person works to quote unquote solve
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's bounce to both of our topics today and let's meld them together.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
What would it look like for a character with a medieval heroic backstory to be shunted into a modern day city? And I want you to describe their state of life 1 year after arriving.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is a fascinating one. This ties in a lot of things. Aside from the whole, city life that we talked about before, medieval heroic backstory also means no technology. It's not really a thing.
Right.
No public transport in general. You just walk or you have a horse and that's it. I guess you just make money by doing random stuff instead of being in the whole long-term contract-related workflow, right? That's a very different thing from medieval society.
Your resume doesn't carry over, man. You gotta.
No, it's not really a thing. You're good with a sword. Great. Now fill in this paperwork. Yeah, that's a very different life. I would think the most important thing that this character will realize very quickly after arrival is that nobody cares about them here. The city is too big. Everyone is a hero here. I mean, I'm kind of going New York a little bit here, right? But it's a good aesthetic, so let's just go with it. Everyone dreams of the New York life. Everyone dreams of being big and important and famous and busy. That's the people of this city. And when you are in medieval life and dreaming of a big, important life or city, a famous life, there's either not a lot of people that have that or care about that, or you are the only one that will actually make it happen because you have some skills. If we're going like general adventurer type here,
sure,
he's pretty good with a sword, pretty proud of himself. He's daring enough to go on adventures and actually finish them. Stuff like that. They're, the hero of the town. So if they, for some reason, end up in a city like New York, all of a sudden, everyone is very good at everything. And also, there's a lot of everyone. There's like multiples of people that have that same idea in their head, right? That came here for the same reason. And I think that's a big sort of ego dump on this character. I mean, it's the real deal. You want to be part of the city, you got to understand what it's like. So that's going to be very refreshing for him. Let's say he's a male. And then first off, it's going to be probably just some figuring out in general, like how the hierarchy of the city works. Like cities are, I guess, the same in medieval times, but a city like New York has different neighborhoods, different aesthetics, different kinds of people that live in certain places in certain areas.
Sure.
This is bringing back all sorts of stuff from like, what does it mean to start living on your own? What does it mean to like be in a bigger city on your own?
Your first year is independent.
I'm getting like flashback now. Yeah. It's like being independent a little bit. It's like being realistic, I guess. I think he just starts off with just like a simple job somewhere in a restaurant or something that's not too far off how medieval things work. Like this can be a tavern, but like modern times. He can be at Starbucks, sure.
Yeah, he finds himself like an old Irish pub just so he can be like kind a little closer to what he's familiar
that's
with.
Actually so funny. This is probably the deal. Yeah, he's just finding a pub. The whole deal about this pub is that it wants to cater to the people that long for other times, right? That long for the simple life in an English countryside. And he's just like, this is my life. This is the only familiar thing that I see around me. So I guess I'm just going to work here because they don't have 1,000 versions of coffee because I don't understand I don't know what a latte macchiato is. What does that mean? I just need simple beer and ale. That's what I understand. This person probably just works there for the sake of easing their very overstimulated, confused mind in this city.
Do you guys have medieval times in the Netherlands?
Do we have medieval times? What?
Okay, clearly not.
What do you mean?
Medieval times is like a nightly show. It's held in like a Colosseum stadium.
I'm so confused. I thought you meant like, did you also go through the time period that is the medieval times?
Did you guys also have the Dark Ages?
What do you mean?
Did that happen to you? Uh-huh. Did you guys experience the bubonic plague? Like, no, medieval times is like, it's like a show play where there's like 6 knights and they have horses and they do like activities and they pretend to win the favor of the queen, things like that.
Wow.
And like it's like a thing. I think
is it like a festival or a show?
It's just a show that happens every night. It has its own building, its own stadium, and people perform in it. Like
that's crazy.
The same actors.
That's definitely where he works in. I mean, obviously. It's
He'd
made
be
for
a
him.
star. Yeah.
Maybe he actually gets famous because he can do it so well, because this was his life before he came here.
He definitely auditions and actually maims one of the actors. And it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
They're like, easy there, bro. That's a lot of method acting you got there.
Yeah, too much method acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Oh, gosh.
Maybe try a plastic sword next time. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But aside from that,
he loves this stuff.
the intensity was great. Yeah, we really believed in it. Yeah.
Very convincing.
But no, we don't have a show like that. We just have some people like enact historic moments or something. That's a thing where a lot of people just go into like historical dress, and then a sort of teller of the story is like, and then this happened and the battle of something, and then you see it live play out. But I think that's the closest we got to that.
Yeah. We love medieval times here. It's just too fun. You get a team, you get a knight that you root for throughout the night, and only one knight wins at the very end. So only a sixth of the audience is very happy.
I'm not sure if I understand this concept completely.
I'll send you a video. I'm sure it'll make sense.
I'm
once
very
you
curious
do.
now. Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, I'm just imagining this guy finds himself in like a LARP community, or finds himself.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
he's the one that's just a bit too into it. You have these hobby groups that some people are like, it's their only thing that they do in their life. And he's kind of this guy because he just doesn't know anything else. It's the only thing he's good at.
He finds his community amongst the LARPers.
That's pretty wholesome though. Like back to his roots, sort of, in a way.
Yeah, and I can absolutely see him like in a Starbucks just being very jovial, being like, hark, you thy ordered fresh macchiato.
Yep.
Very cool.
Okay. Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah, I look forward to bringing up the same character in future prompts.
Oh,
The progression of his
life. Is this going to be our generic main character now?
Every time I need a prompt and I haven't thought of one, I'll just be like, let's talk about Patroclus. 5 years from when he arrived, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Awesome.
Wonderful.
It's like a check-in. Yeah. How's he doing now?
Checking in.
Yeah.
Checking in with Patroclus.
Give me a segment. Okay.
Thanks for tuning into our podcast.
Yeah.
Gotta let you guys know, this is the second to last podcast, the penultimate podcast to our summer break.
Yes,
so next episode
true.
will be the last for a month's time, unless we have some cool episodes planned in between. We don't know yet. But anyway, thank you for listening. This is a fun one. If you like episodes like these, feel free to check out the others for any topics you want. This isn't chronological. Well, it kind of is if you're finding our arcs from our intros of like how our lives go. But besides that, you can watch these episodes in any order you want. So please do have fun. Stay safe. Look both ways when crossing the street, and always remember.
Those city tips for you. There's this one thing though.
Let me end the podcast.
Talk about. Yeah.
Let me end the podcast. Oh gosh. Okay. Always remember, your rivers are wrong.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Your Rivers Are Wrong. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future episodes that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to contact us at yourriversarewrong@gmail.com. Our intro and outro music is written by Maarten Schellekens. Thanks for that. And again, thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you at the next one.